Dealing with life, especially as a man in modern society, is challenging, particularly when it comes to understanding the dynamics around women and the workplace. The reality is harsh, and navigating it requires a lot of strategy and self awareness. There's a popular saying, if I can't be beautiful, I want to be invisible. But what happens when you find yourself in the tough spot of being neither beautiful nor invisible? That's a reality many face, and it can feel like you're trapped between extremes with no clear way out. Now, I'm someone who stands firmly against shaming people for their circumstances, especially when it comes to being a NEET, not in education, employment, or training. But let me clarify. Just because I'm against shaming doesn't mean I advocate for doing absolutely nothing with your life. Balance is key. I understand both sides of the argument. On one hand, there's a push for people to strive to reach their potential, especially when they're young and have opportunities ahead. On the other, I empathize with those who feel burned out and choose to disengage, focusing solely on personal enjoyment or hobbies. I sometimes envy men who manage to turn their hobbies into a sustainable career. You know, the ones who make a living doing something they genuinely love, work they'd happily do even if they weren't getting paid. People love to say, just turn your hobby into your job, as if it's that simple. But let's be honest, trying to make a career out of your gaming stats, for instance, isn't going to pay the bills when you're at the grocery store. The privilege of not needing to work is a luxury that only a few can afford. Most of us don't have that. If you're a below average looking guy from a family without wealth or connections, life is going to feel like an uphill battle. For those in that position, what some might call sub 5 in attractiveness and low in social status, not having to interact with society often feels like the best case scenario. If you can manage to create a situation where you can live quietly, away from the grind, you've already achieved more than many others in similar circumstances. For a lot of men, the so-called life script is this. You work relentlessly just to scrape by, paying off a mortgage, putting food on the table, and sacrificing your youth and health in the process. This is often paired with relationships that feel transactional, where you're providing for someone who doesn't genuinely love or respect you. You keep working, you lose your hair, and you resign yourself to a monotonous, soul-draining 9-to-5 job. For many, this cycle repeats for 30 or 40 years until retirement. It's a brutal reality, but it's the one most working-class men live with. Sure, there are exceptions, the good lifers, as I call them, those who are born into wealth and don't have to worry about these struggles. These are the folks who can afford to spend their days rotting on Discord or indulging in hobbies without financial worries. But for the rest of us, we're stuck navigating the work-life grinder. That's why I want to share some hard-earned lessons I've picked up after gaining some experience in the workplace. Workplace survival tips for outsiders. 1. Colleagues are not your friends. The first and most important thing to remember is that your coworkers are not your friends, no matter how friendly they may seem. Especially if you're a socially awkward or below average looking guy, don't fall for lines like, "We're like a family here." That's just corporate jargon to keep you invested in the company. Always approach workplace relationships with caution. Be polite and professional, but keep your guard up. When you attend company events, for example, make sure to socialize. Don't isolate yourself, but draw a clear line between professional and personal behavior. If there's alcohol involved, never drink more than a single glass. Alcohol lowers your inhibitions, and while others might be able to let loose without repercussions, you can't afford to let your guard down. It's easy to say something you shouldn't or reveal vulnerabilities that people might exploit later. 2. Never overshare or complain. One of the biggest mistakes you can make at work is oversharing personal details or venting about your problems. The harsh truth is, Most people don't care about your struggles, and exposing your weaknesses will only make you a target. Vulnerability is often interpreted as incompetence or a lack of professionalism. For example, don't discuss your personal frustrations with colleagues or gossip about others in the office. Remember, those who gossip to you will also gossip about you. Workplace relationships are often built on convenience and self-interest, not genuine connection. 3. Master discretion and digital security. In the digital age, workplace surveillance is real. Never assume that private messages on platforms like Slack or Teams are actually private. Employers can and often do monitor these channels. I've seen people get in trouble for bad-mouthing their boss or sharing inappropriate content via work email. Always operate as if every interaction is being watched. Use your personal phone and data plan for private matters and avoid connecting to company Wi-Fi without a VPN. Nos 4. Appear busy, even when you're not. In the workplace, perception often matters more than reality. It's less about how much you actually accomplish and more about how busy you appear to be. When chatting with colleagues, casually mention how overloaded you are or how much you had to work over the weekend. But don't overdo it. Complaining too much can backfire. The key is to strike a balance that makes you seem hardworking without inviting additional tasks. 5. Don't admit to loneliness or isolation. Society often stigmatizes loners, assuming there's something inherently wrong with them. If you don't have a social life, fabricate one. Mention a girlfriend, even if she doesn't exist, or talk about fictional weekend plans. This may seem dishonest, but the alternative, being open about your loneliness, can lead to judgment and exclusion. 6. Avoid office romances at all costs. Never, under any circumstances, try to pursue a romantic relationship with a coworker. This is a dangerous game, especially for someone who's already struggling socially. Misinterpreting politeness for interest is a common mistake, and the consequences can be severe. It's not worth risking your reputation or career over a misstep like this. Shash, the brutal truth about the modern workplace. Ultimately, the workplace is a battleground where survival depends on understanding the rules of the game. It's about maintaining the right balance between blending in and standing out. You need to be competent enough to get the job done, but savvy enough to shift blame if things go wrong. Always prepare for the possibility of being let go. Save money, plan ahead, and have a backup strategy. For those of us who weren't born into privilege, life can often feel like a series of uphill battles. But by approaching each challenge strategically, you can carve out a path that works for you, even if it's not the one society prescribes. Stay vigilant, stay focused, and never stop looking out for yourself. This expanded version delves deeper into each point, offers examples, and provides more context to make the advice comprehensive. Let me know if you'd like further refinements.